So we're continuing on with our bite-sized reviews today, and it's now the turn of one of those Catan Shard units, and it's the Catan Shard of the Void Dragon. $115 in the US, £70 in the UK, so quite a pricey model, but it does look magnificent. So it is going to be one of your elite selections within your Necron Codex, and we are limited to only having one Catan Shard per detachment. Of course, you can only have one Void Dragon Catan Shard because it's a named Catan Shard. But as for the points cost, it's going to be costing you 300 points. So in terms of the datasheet, it's going to have no dynasty code. Of course, no Catan Shards have any dynasty codes. Also, Catan Shards do not have any command protocols. I've seen that mistake happen a few times with Necron players, but the Catan Shards do not have command protocols. I've seen instances where Necron players are using the Protocol of Undying Legions to bring back 2 wounds from living metal, but it doesn't apply to a Catan Shard. So the only Necron's natural ability that he has is living metal, where he can bring back only 1 wound. Now also, he cannot be taking any warlord traits, he cannot be taking any relics, and you can also not be using the Lookout Sir rule on this model. So it can be targeted right from turn 1, regardless of what's around it. Now he does have the fly keyword, so he can actually be hopping in between terrain features. That may help you out somewhat, but this guy does have a ranged attack, and of course the Catan powers as well, which sometimes they need visibility, so it isn't always the best way to be completely behind obscuring terrain if you want to be firing out those kind of powers and weapons. So let's finish off the rest of those abilities before we get on to the actual weapons and powers. The first one is the Necrodermis ability, which gives him a 4+ invulnerable save, and also he cannot lose more than 3 wounds in a given phase. That applies to all the Catan Shards, it's pretty nice, especially if you're going up against factions that are quite one-dimensional, like Tau for example. They're only really shooty. Now don't get me wrong, our Catan Shards can take mortal wounds in phases such as the charge phase, the movement phase, even the morale phase in some cases, so you've just got to be a little bit more careful about when you're bringing out these Catan Shards. If you're going up against a psychic faction for example, that's not going to be a good day. Now the next ability is Matter Absorption. Every time you remove a vehicle model from the tabletop, you roll a d6. On a 2+, you literally regain a lost wound. Not too bad when you've only got 9 wounds, and yeah, when you're losing 3 per phase and you've got living metal on top of that, this could be really crucial to keeping this guy up and running. Then the final ability is Reality Unravels, which is pretty much the same thing as an explosion. Once he does get destroyed, on a 4+, not the 6+, it's a 4+, all models that are within 6 inches of the Void Dragon will suffer d3 mortal wounds. Not too bad if you've thrown him right up the battlefield and there's lots of enemy units nearby. So next we're going to be talking about the Catan powers that are available to the Void Dragon. Now we're not going to go through every single one of them, I think we've done that in a previous video recently, but let's go through his own unique Catan power, which is the Voltaic Storm. So he must be taking this one to begin. So you select one enemy unit within 18 inches and visible. Very important there, it's and visible, and you can't be selecting characters under 9 wounds if they've got units within 3 inches of them. Unless of course they are the closest eligible unit, then yeah, you can target them. So you roll a d6, on a 2+, they suffer d3 mortal wounds. Pretty standard, it's a little bit like a smite attack. However, if it is a vehicle model, that d3 becomes d6. You're also going to be halving the amount of wounds it has left on its bracket table to determine what actual row it's going to be using. So if the model's got 14 wounds, it's going to be considered to have 7 wounds remaining in terms of the bracket table. And don't forget, if it does destroy that vehicle, you roll a d6, and on a 2+, you get a wound back too. Now as mentioned, I've already gone through some of the powers, so if you haven't seen that video, check that one out. I'll probably put a link in the top right for you now. If I have forgot, make sure you comment down below to remind me, because I probably will forget. But there are 2 stratagems available for your Catan powers. The first one is Strange Echoes, and you're simply just swapping your powers over from one of the ones in the Necron Codex that you don't already have. Now you will lose one of your powers of course, but maybe a situation arises where the Cosmic Fire Catan power may be more usable than say the Sky of Falling Stars, then yeah, for 1 CP you're just swapping them out. The second one is Dimensional Destabilization, which is also 1 command point for the Void Dragon, and this one you're going to get to use an additional power to the ones you've already used, even if it's the same one you've already used in fact. However, it will be at random, so you roll a d6 and you use the corresponding table in the Necron Codex. So if you roll a 2 for example, that will be times arrow, you have to use times arrow. If you roll a 1, that'll be Antimatter Meteor, and so on. So let's talk about the weapons that actually come with the Void Dragon, because he has a ranged weapon as well as a melee weapon. Both are called Spear of the Void Dragon. Now the range attack is 12 inches, it is only heavy 1, so if you are shooting that in combat it will be a -1 to hit of course because it's heavy, but even though it is only heavy 1, you select the target within 12 inches and you draw a line from your Void Dragon all the way to the targeted unit, and any units that the line actually hits will also be a target of this attack. Now it is strength 9, -4 AP, and the damage is d6. And if it's a vehicle model it's not going to be d6, it's going to be d3 + 3, which is an average of 5 damage. so you're getting a little bit more damage when it's going up against vehicle models as opposed to other standard units. So the melee side of the weapon, the exact same stats here, strength 9, minus 4 AP and D6 damage. And again, going up against vehicles, it's D3 plus 3 wounds as opposed to D6. So very useful against vehicles, of course. You've kind of gathered that by now. All the abilities kind of synergize quite nicely together when you're going up against those models. Now he also does have a secondary melee weapon, which is the Canoptic Tailblades. These are strength 6, minus 2 AP and only 1 damage, but you're going to be getting D6 additional attacks with this weapon. So your 5 base attacks are going to go with the Spear of the Void Dragon, and the D6 attacks are going to go with the Canoptic Tailblades. So all in all, a potential of 11 attacks there. Not too bad at all. Now you can use a stratagem with these attacks using the Entropic Strike stratagem. It's going to cost you 2 command points, so a little bit pricey here, but you're literally going to be removing all invulnerable saves for units targeted by your melee attacks. So in particular, those vehicles that have got an invuln save, yep, completely remove those. But even against the smaller units, when you're using the Canoptic Tailblades, if you're going up against those units that have got 5 plus invuln save, a 6 plus invuln save, yeah, you're completely removing those too. Now unfortunately, these are not going to work for those demonic saves. They're not invuln saves technically. You can't be modifying them whatsoever. So, not really much to say in terms of unit synergy because these guys are kind of lone wolves, they go and do their own thing. The only potential option is using Orokin the Diviner to give him the reroll to the charge roll, but he's not really getting selected, is he? Alternatively, a Triox Stalker with his targeting relay to reroll hit rolls of a 1. Now he's already hitting on the 2+, probably not needed, but yeah, you've got that synergy if you wanted to. But overall, a very distracting unit. Your opponent is going to literally be targeting this thing as early as they possibly can, especially knowing that they can only take 3 wounds per phase off the model. Your opponent is going to need to target this thing nice and early because as soon as it starts getting into their back lines, with those strength 9 weapons, D6 damage a pop, it's going to do quite a lot. But even at range, you only need that 12-inch range to be doing quite a lot of damage, especially against vehicle factions. They're not going to like that. Astra Militarum, Tau, possibly some Space Marine chapters as well. They are not going to like a Void Dragon. But let's get on to the Planet 40k rating today. For me, the Void Dragon is going to be getting a Planet 40k rating of 4.5 out of 5 stars.